mamas. This is Lacey, your lactation counselor, and you're listening to the Early Motherhood Guide podcast, where motherhood is simply supported. So today I have Carolina on our podcast. And so why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Carolina. I'm a Reiki womb healer, and I help women conceive their babies with Reiki, and I serve them all the way through pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. I have an online Reiki practice, a membership, a group coaching program, and I help women essentially just that help heal their womb so they can conceive and then serve all the way through postpartum.
Nice. I love that. So when it comes to postpartum, I feel like there's a lot of unknowns. It's also
So
very
much.
different with each baby. Even it could be so different, but with
So
each
different.
mama. So something that I struggled with my first, I didn't struggle with my third, or even with a friend or a mama. Like it could be all so different. So what do you think a new mama needs to know about postpartum?
Is that you're to let yourself expand and let the journey unfold in ways that you may not have anticipated. That this is the time to go ahead and plan the meals, but create pockets of time where you can feel things and just let yourself be. And whether that is, and that can be pockets of time of like, this is downtime. I think in postpartum, we get so busy doing all of the things and trying to bounce back. But really, this should be a restorative, sacred time for you to explore who you are now and to get to know who this new person is in your family and settle into the new you. Your soul is still there, but the old you and how you react to things and how you're going to experience or even feel about things is unknown in this period of time. So I always like to say, how are we creating opportunities or even pockets of time throughout your day to let you feel into this new rhythm, into this new vibration, into this new chapter of your family's life, and also for you to meet yourself who you are now and with this new soul?
Yeah, for sure. How do you feel would be a quick tip on fitting those times in throughout your day with a newborn?
I think that it's understanding that things are about rhythms and not necessarily scheduling.
Yeah.
So people have routines and they may not be structured routines, but they tend to do the same things in the same pattern every day. So understanding that if you're off by an hour or two, or maybe some days you don't get that pocketed time at all, but as long as you're communicating in your needs to your partner, to your village, then there it is there also their time to make sure you get that time. And if you're doing this solo, then it's time for us to cultivate your village. And those can be found in so many different ways in your community or even online, so that you are keeping yourself together in the best way, in the highest ability for your wellness, not only just for you, but also for your baby. I think we sometimes have to seek it out before we break, and then we have to have it.
Very true. Even when maybe your husband or partner works often and you are still doing it. I have a mama that is flown, like her husband is now a pilot and he's gone all the time. And so, yeah, she needs that village, right? And so, really focusing on getting that connection with people is important, whether it's with your partner or reaching out when it's needed. I love that. So,
Yes. And also understanding, depending on what type of postpartum experience you have, your said village before you gave birth to baby may not be the same people after you give birth to baby. When I
yes.
gave birth to my son, Ollie, everyone disappeared. They did not know how to handle a NICU story or birth trauma that was so severe. They didn't know how to handle. I did things very differently. Like, I don't want you coming over to hold my baby. If you want to come over, then you can do the dishes. And I literally said this, and they're like, no, we're coming over. I was like, then don't come. It was very strict boundaries of like, I'm bonding with baby. I was very protective over him. I had PPA and I had PBD, and I didn't even want my mother-in-law holding him. And they retracted. We didn't see them for 2 months. And that's okay. I had to take care of me because I was in a very dire situation regarding my PPA, my C-section recovery, all of these things. And that's my story, not to scare anyone, but my postpartum was very fragile. I was in therapy. I couldn't be left alone for a while, not to harm a baby, but just because I was so fragile, meaning like I didn't really get up from the couch. I was triple feeding and I clung to breastfeeding as a coping mechanism in a very unhealthy way because my birth was completely super traumatic in so many ways. And so many things went wrong with us after he was born that I just needed something I could control and something to ground me. So understanding that I was like, well, if I'm going to survive this, I'm going to have to save myself and I'm going to need new people because these people are not cutting it. Eventually things got better with my in-laws. We had very hard conversations. But we healed from that. Just understanding that depending on what you experience in your birth, that can influence your postpartum. And a lot of people in our lives were not the people that are even, they're not in our lives at all anymore, and they don't know us anymore. And I have peace with that. I mourned the loss of those relationships, but I learned that they were also face value, that a lot of the relationships I had were revolved in my job. And I learned exactly what work relationships were versus soul relationships and who's going to show up for you. In trust, learning how to trust people again. And I built a whole new village that I now know like will arrive to me if I know that I say I'm sick and we need things. The feeling is mutual. I had to cultivate new friendships, and I found them in La Leche League and a baby wearing community. I found them in Reiki. I found them online. I even found one in my CPA. She and I are besties for the resties. So sometimes with those losses can really give you space for literally the people who are going to help you shine the brightest and feel the happiest come in, that want to love on you, that want to love on your baby, that want to love on your whole family and really serve you and see you do well. And that's the biggest difference that happened to me in my postpartum, was understanding that a lot of the trauma like actually did me a favor and cleaned house for me if I didn't understand that these people were not for my highest good or going to support me when this was my darkest time.
Yeah. And I think it was really smart of you to communicate that to right off the bat, because I think a lot of people want to support you and enjoy like this and celebrate this time with you, but just don't know how, you know? And I mean, some just selfishly want to go help hold your baby, but at the
And I
same
don't think
time,
there's anything wrong with that.
right.
I celebrate the mamas that I see in Walmart that are laughing. And I saw a mom in, we went out to, what is that? Red Robin. My son loved Red Robin. And we saw a mom with twin babies and she was happy and she was drinking a beer. And I was like, right. I was like sending her so many good vibes. And my mind was like, I was not that strong. I was not, I mean, we didn't leave the house much. I remember one time the therapist said, you need to leave the house at least once a week. And I was like, I only leave to come here and if I'm driven. So
Yeah.
I think that every postpartum is different. Like some things that are really hard for me, it was really difficult for me to breastfeed and function outside the house. Versus like other moms are like, I need to get back to work or I need to get out to get some air.
Mm.
Everyone's needs are different, but understanding that it's okay where you're at and figuring out what your needs are and celebrating when you have big wins or little wins. So
Yeah, for sure. How did you find your postpartum recovery? Did that affect at all your breastfeeding journey?
yes, very much all of the things. So I had done all the things. I had the birth plan, I had the birth doula, I had a postpartum doula. I did everything. We were in NICU for a little bit less than a week. I did everything the hospital IBCLC said to do. And then my milk didn't come in right away. And it was really slow to come in. And it was very like everything to do with stress and shock. I believe my body was in shock. Um, and sleep deprivation and not eating, all of the things you need to eat, drink, and you also need to sleep to make good milk. And I was not in the hospital. I was just in NICU, not taking my meds, not eating, not drinking, not sleeping. I didn't sleep for 4 days.
Yeah.
I was married to this baby in this wheelchair that I was in, and they're like the night shift person would come in and they're like, have you left this room? And I said no. So there was nobody from labor and delivery checking on me in NICU.
Oh, wow.
And I had missed all the morning meds, all like it was a disaster. So for me, it was understanding that I absolutely had to sleep. in me understanding in this panic mode that this baby was going to live and be okay if I took a nap or if I rested. And I think when you have a traumatic birth, that can instantly impact how you react in just a few days after. We struggled to exclusively breastfeed. When Ollie was about 11 or 12 weeks, I was able to fully transition him off formula. And at that time, he was starting to like not want formula anymore and wanted boob. So my postpartum fueled the need to control something, and that was breastfeeding, but I wasn't producing enough. We had a great this nonprofit here in Omaha called Milkworks, where you can go, and they had IBLCs, LCs, and my lactation consultant was basically, this is more than I actually can handle. And she was the postpartum. She goes, you need to go see them and see what's wrong. So they did weighted feeds. They looked at my nipples. And it turned out Ollie had a tongue tie, and he at 2 weeks old got his tongue clipped, and the latch went from painful to perfect. And I just remember that I could breastfeed in the house, and then I was like, the hamburger hold was so important. And I breastfed at baby wearing meetings because my husband would take me there just to make me get out of the house, and LHA League. And then we would go to I was going to the IBCLC like free 3 times a week, 4 times a week. And we ended up doing triple feeding for a long time, like for about 5 or 6 weeks. And that was exhausting. But it worked. Like, it was helping my supply. Like, I just had to establish my supply, and I could not skip anything. But the stress, and I noticed like the more water I drank, the more milk I drank. I noticed eventually also how to regulate my supply. When I went back to work, I knew how my boobs worked at that point. I paid attention to what my body did. And when it dipped, I would just power pump, and I knew that the weekends were my time to just hibernate. I tanked a little bit when I went back to work, just because the stress of being around people again. I was okay if I was home with baby, but I didn't know how to operate in the world in my postpartum for about a year and a half. It took me a long time to be a human again, to be a mom, but to be a functional human. It was a lot for me to learn. I didn't know anything about babies. I didn't know how to bathe them, nothing. So like, I was okay as long as my world just existed on that couch with the pump, and I had everything contained. But then if you threw a variable in there, like going to the car or even riding in the car where the baby would scream, Ollie hated being strapped in anything, I couldn't handle it. I couldn't mentally. So except when I got Reiki, I continued to get Reiki in my postpartum, and that helped regulate. But then I was just, everything felt so out of control all the time. That short bliss or that regulation would go after 2 days, would go out the window. So breastfeeding was kind of complicated.
To say the least. And to explain to listeners the triple feeding. So triple feeding is when you're nursing baby, then you pump, and then you feed them from a bottle to top them off, whether that's with your breast milk that you pumped with, which is ultimately the goal, right? Or with formula to kind of just top them off so they are continuing to grow and thrive. So it can be a time consuming and trialing time for sure, but if it goes well, it's absolutely worth the effort. So you spoke a bit about on the Reiki. So how did Reiki actually help you with your postpartum recovery, and how would it help for others? And also explain, what is Reiki?
So Reiki is a proven stress reduction technique. It originated in Japan over 100 years ago. And essentially, it's an energy healing modality. It is done from a certified practitioner to client, and it's actually how it helped me get pregnant. I had some infertility. Everything was fine, but I wasn't getting pregnant. After one Reiki session, I was pregnant. And then I got Reiki through my pregnancy and postpartum. Essentially, what Reiki does is a very holistic way of healing. So it's doing physical, energetic, spiritual, and mental healing all at the same time. So your physical body, your mental, all the layers, all down the way to your cells. So with Reiki, what it essentially is the life force energy. And that energy is what makes the difference between a living thing and not. It's what makes the grass grow, what makes your lungs expand, the things that you can't see. What happens is the Reiki practitioner or Reiki master will channel that energy that comes from their palms, and they can send it through distance because it transcends time and space. So it can be done virtually, which is what I do, or it can be done in person where they lay their hands on a person, but they're not legally allowed to manipulate her tissues unless they're a licensed massage therapist or another type of physical therapist, occupational therapist, something like that. So for Reiki in postpartum, what it allowed me to do was ground. And essentially I had so many, so much had been taken from me in my birth. I felt like my soul had been broken in many different pieces. And it was essentially, it works with the same, Reiki works with the 7 main chakras. So much of my energy had left my body and was accumulating in these overactive thoughts. Reiki collected all of that energy and put you back in my body. And what that feeling is, you can call it feeling whole or complete or feeling of groundedness. So when a person says, "Oh, I'm going to go ground," and they put their feet on earth or in the soil and they walk outside with a cup of coffee, that's a grounding ritual. Or some people say a meditative, like if you're outside and you watch the birds for 20 minutes, that's actually a grounding practice, or is a form of meditation. And what is happening is all of their thoughts or their energy that was external or they were putting out is being collected and you put it in that back in their physical body. So it's allowing their nervous system to settle, and it's allowing them to take a deeper breath. It's allowing them to shift their perspective. They're thinking more clearly because there's not a fragmented version of themselves making decisions or thinking with Reiki, because I was so all over the place, and when it came to baby, I was focused, but when it came to I couldn't open the mail, and I sound like a hot mess. It's because I was I couldn't. It took every bit that I had left in me to take care of this child, to take care of breastfeeding and doing this. And so many people, like my mom said, it's okay if you quit. And my mother-in-law goes, "Don't feel like you have to breastfeed." And I said, "This will be the last conversation we ever had." And I said the same thing to my mom. "If you don't support me in this, you don't support me or love me." And that's how I was so committed to breastfeeding, because again, it was the last thing I had that I really wanted to give my baby.
Yeah.
And Reiki allowed me to feel like I could move forward, that it would restore my energy enough every month that I got Reiki. It would give me enough energy to keep moving forward, because I knew that I had been through very hard things, that this was a hard phase. But I also knew that this child that I had prayed for so long needed me. So I knew that whatever this Reiki was doing for me, it was making me feel better. And I liked it. And I liked that I felt like a whole person after I left the session. And I loved that every time I went to this session, this woman received me. And as I was, no matter if I cried the entire time or if I fell asleep snoring, which happened often, or if I talked the entire time, everything about me was just right for this woman. And for me, I knew I was hurting a lot of people in my postpartum, and I wasn't disappointing this person. And I didn't have to do or be anything in this moment. And that's exactly what Reiki is. It allows you to be who you are in this moment. You don't have to be anything. And the Reiki will just heal you exactly where you need to, because the energy will flow through your body, feels like tingles and warmth, and it will reduce the stress. So if there's anything that's stuck in your tissues that need to be healed, it will come to the surface and they can sweep it away. Not necessarily that you have to talk about it. You don't at all. And they'll sweep it away and they'll clear your energy so that you feel lighter, you can breathe better, and you can just overall feel more energetically clean. So in postpartum, a lot of our energy is stuck in the depletion state. So in postpartum with Reiki, really what you want to focus on, and what I do is I restore where it's depleted. So it's not necessarily just taking away and removing what's stuck, but at this point, it's really strengthening the chakras so that they can flow and she can feel optimal again. So she can feel completely whole again. She can feel completely alive because she's grown this human for so long. We have to put energy back into her. It's about restoration more than clearing.
Okay. And when it comes to labor and delivering your babies, sometimes it is a transformable experience, right? It'll transform you either where you feel like you just conquered a mountain, and sometimes it feels like you're being torn down, depending on how things go or how you were treated. And so, with Reiki, is this something that they focus on one chakra or one area and one part of your energy each session?
No, they shouldn't.
Okay.
Every session, you should be leaving completely holistically balanced. They should be hitting every chakra in your entire chakra system. Whether it's fertility, maternity, or postpartum, I will hit every single chakra. And depending on where they're at, you usually have a super chakra, which is like your superpower, like heart. So are you a big lover? Or are you standing in your purpose? Is your throat chakra your super chakra? Or there is always one. So this is a super chakra, and then one that needs support is there's one that's perpetually going to need support through their life. So like my son, he's going to need support in his root chakra. He's always going to need help grounding versus like his heart chakra is bigger than the earth. So he's going to love everyone and make them their best friend. So you should know, I mean, that's how I do Reiki. And that's it's usual. Like if they see patterns, they'll be able to tell you what those things are. They also should know, like, okay, I saw some sensitivity in your shoulder. I saw this blockage. They should be able to articulate where the blockages were that are removed. And if anything, some Reiki practitioners like myself are a medium. I can talk to people who've passed, even your spirit babies, if you've lost any, or babies you're going to have in the future. Or I can even talk to your womb. I have a gift. I can be able to basically see inside the womb and see if there's any blockages there so I can clear out. So I tend to spend more time in the root chakra in the womb, especially if there's pregnancy, birth, or postpartum, because the more that I can get you to return home to your body, the better off the rest of your energy will be.
Nice. Interesting. So how are you, I'm assuming you do a lot of that online for some mamas that are
My
virtual?
entire business is online. I've been doing Reiki since 2017 and served over 500 women. We have 72 Reiki babies to date.
Nice. And how is
Yeah.
that moving energy over a computer?
It's very different. I do mine over Zoom, so I like to connect. I Some people do it differently, like they might call, but for me, it's much easier if it's live and I'm able to connect and I can see them. I can't see auras, but I can see inside people's chakras. So I have a student who can see auras and colors, and I can't do that. So with that, I'm able to connect with them easier visibly over the screen. I also make sure that they're consenting. Like if they're showing up, I'm assuming they're consenting. If they're, I have never had that happen, but you can only give Reiki to people who consent.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. What inspired you to be a Reiki specialist?
So most people who do Reiki don't specialize. I do. I saw a lot of people doing Reiki. Once I got certified, it was because I wanted to be able to give my son Reiki
Mm.
initially, and then I sat with it. When I was originally starting my business, it was only for postpartum, and I had a table. I would go to women's houses that were newly postpartum, and I was a mobile Reiki service, and that ended very quickly because it was very heavy and going up and down stairs, and you just never know what kind of environment you're walking into, dogs or other loud babies or children and husbands that stare at you. They're weird. So I ended up in a chiropractor's office,
Yeah.
and I did that for years. And then I went online right before the pandemic. And I chose to serve because there was so many moments where my clients mirrored me. So I started postpartum because I thought, well, if Reiki helped me come out of postpartum so much, and it was healing me so much, then why women need to know that this is an option for me, for them. And then I started seeing like, okay, well, then I went full spectrum. The more you heal up front, the less you have to heal later. And as I started to heal my complete experience in postpartum and all the way back through fertility, I learned everything went back to the womb. And after serving so many women in the chiropractor's office, every session and went back to the womb: emotional health, creativity, worthiness, connection to parents, childhood experiences. And they were the same patterns that were keeping women from getting pregnant. So I thought, well, if I can, what is the biggest way for me to impact all the babies that want to be born? I need to start at the very beginning. So if I can help women heal all of the emotional blockages in their life that are like, some people say, skeletons in their closet or shadow work before they even get pregnant, that's going to make their fertility, pregnancy, birth, and postpartum less complicated. Yeah. Because when you go through those things and there's unaddressed traumas, like I had an abortion in my 20s, that had a big deal in my postpartum of feeling how unworthy. There was moments of panic, like I'm so unworthy of having this healthy 9-pound baby. Who am I to have this baby after I did that? I had to address it again, and some things are later. You think you tackled it and it comes over. So women need to know that there was other ways to heal and holistically heal, not just one piece at a time, not just doing insulin resistant work or lifestyle changes for PCOS and all of that. You need a whole self. So that's why I did it. Start at the beginning so the rest is not so complicated.
Yeah. Wow. That seems like some deep work and recovery.
It's not for the lighthearted.
No, you would need to go from the beginning all the way to the end. I love that you do all that support though, because it really is where we store all of our energy and where everything comes. I mean, it's our superpower, I think.
I think it's a super, yes, it is.
Right.
I even made a Reiki guided meditation for breastfeeding to boost your supply. Oh, if your listeners want it, we can put it in the show notes.
Yes. Send it my way and I'll put it in the show notes for sure. So speaking of that, so where can these mamas even find you?
I'm most active on TikTok and Instagram. My biggest following is on TikTok. It's the Carolina Sotomayor. And you can work with me using my membership, which is Fertility Foundation's membership, or the Next Level Fertility Group program, where we heal your infertility in 90 days.
Oh, nice. I love that. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us this week.
Lacey, you're a gem and I love your energy so much. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks for everybody for joining us, and I will see you next week.